Hi everyone, my name is Lola Brown and I'm the Children and Families Worker at Tyler's Methodist Church, as you know. And I am joined by our new minister, Reverend Helen Watson. Helen with an H, because we all know I can't pronounce my H's when it's there. Okay. Welcome, Helen. So we are just going to spend a few minutes initially finding out a little bit about Helen. Go on.
Okay, right. Well, I think I've told you quite a few things already, so I don't want to repeat myself. But as you know, I'm here from South East London, here with my husband, Sean, who's a tennis coach, and our youngest son, Richard, who you'll see a lot of at Talhurst Methodist Church, and our dog, Darby. I'm just going to see whether I can show you Darby. Just a minute. Darby. You'll have to tell me, Lola, whether you can see her.
I can see Darby.
There you go. Thank you, Darby.
Hey, Darby.
I think you can see the piano behind me, and so piano there, a little church organ next to it, which is a rescue. Darby's a rescue, and the organ's a rescue as well. Rescued it from a church that didn't want it anymore, so I've got that. And what else can I say? Horses, languages, that's about it. You'll find out about these things as we go along.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you tell us your experience in your previous churches during the pandemic?
Yeah, it was a very, very difficult time, and they're certainly not out of the woods yet. We lost a lot of people, lost a lot of activities, really, which they still haven't been able to pull back together.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you. Right, we hope this recording of our conversation will help to shine light on some of the conversations that we've been hearing, questions that have been raised, and also people who feel a bit out of touch with what's going on at Tyler's Methodist Church at the moment. So I'm going to be asking Helen a couple of those questions, and John Skeet as well. And of course, if your question has not been answered in this short video, please reach out and we might do another one, Q&A with Helen Watson. Right. So the first question I have is, why are we still limiting numbers of attendees?
Well, we need to make sure that everybody is as safe as they possibly can be. So that's the reason. The capacity of our building, it's been measured according to the COVID guidelines, and the capacity of our building is 90 people, with a 1 metre gap between people who are not of the same household. So that's why people need to register attendance beforehand, so that we can get the church set up accordingly and make sure that we don't need to turn anybody away at the door, which would be really difficult to do. So I think the church is doing very well with this, actually, and it's been wonderful to come and to have so many people in the building. That's a real treat after so long with empty churches.
Thank you. The next question is, can mask wearing be a personal choice like everywhere else? And if not, why not?
It's not a personal choice at the moment, because we've been directed by the Methodist Church to continue to wear masks, particularly for singing, because coronavirus is an airborne virus. So we're just taking everybody's safety really seriously. I mean, somebody said to me the other day that, you can go into the supermarket and there's no control over how many people are in there, and people can be in there without wearing a mask and so on. But all I want to say is that a Methodist church is a much safer place to be than any of these other places that you might go. So you can be confident that we're doing our best to keep you safe. And I suppose my advice would be, get your shopping delivered and come to church.
Thank you. How can the singers sing towards the congregation without masks, but the congregation must sing wearing masks?
Well, again, this has been measured according to guidelines which have come both from the Methodist Church and from the people advising government, to do with the way in which the virus is spread. So people in the congregation are only 1 metre apart from each other. And obviously you've got people behind you as well as next to you and potentially in front of you as well. Whereas the singers at the front are at least 3 metres away from the congregation. So that is deemed to be safe. So that's why we're doing it that way.
So this one is less of a question, probably more of a statement, but we'll work with it. So some people are feeling they are not being allowed to make their own decisions or have a say in how decisions are made. What do you think?
Well, we're living under unprecedented circumstances. So I think we've just got to go along with it as it is, just for a little while. And we hope that it won't be very long. I think it's really important that the Methodist Church is offering us rules and guidelines. And I think if they didn't, if they just said it's up to each church to decide what they do, I think people would be saying, why haven't we got any rules or guidance from the Methodist Church on this? So I think we follow what we've been asked to do in order to keep one another safe and hope that we can get back to complete normality in the very near future.
Oh, brilliant. That's great to know. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I suppose the last question I have here is more targeted towards me, but I know you can contribute as well, is that we seem to have lost touch with children on a Sunday, which I think is really sad. And I'm really sad about that because I see the family, I see a lot of the families, and not just me, though. I've got a wonderful team around me of volunteers across Junior Church, Jolly Tots, Wow, Snug, Gap, and Tots the TMC. You know, we see children across the week. So for children, what I want people to understand is Sunday is not the only day for church. You know, it's the weekday. But yes, to be able to hear a child giggling or see a child dancing in church, yes, it is rejuvenating and it's an exciting thing as well. And we are obviously really excited that all age service has started today. As you can hopefully look around, there's a few dotted around upstairs and downstairs. But you know, it's for what we hope is that every second Sunday until we review it in January is an all age worship. And then the first Sunday of the month, starting from the 6th of November, is when Junior Church will meet as well. Junior Church, we would love to meet more regularly than once a month. However, we need more volunteers. We need more volunteers, not just for safeguarding, but also because the helpers that we have now, it's important for them to have time for worship themselves, you know, with their family, with their partners, you know, away from looking after our lovely children of Tyler's Methodist Church. So please look deep inside yourself and ask God, you know, have you got energy to give? Have you got capacity? And speak to myself, Helen, or Laura, or any of the other volunteers, Christine Hollands, Holly Skeet. But the other area we also need the volunteers on is Snug. You know, Snug, Wow. And we would love for these groups to continue, but we need more helpers. So yes, if you do love seeing children all over, please volunteer. Let us know. Thank you, Helen, for joining me. Hopefully we've shone enough light on some of the questions that we've had, and it's eased people's worries. But if it's thrown up more questions than answers to you guys out there, please do let us know and speak to us privately. Hi everyone. So now I'm joined by John Skeet.
Hello.
Hello. Would you like to introduce yourself, John, for those who don't know you?
So I'm John, and I'm normally behind the AV desk, and I will be this Sunday when this film will be played. Sometimes with one of my sons, Robin. Other times it'll be other people from the AV rota behind the scenes. But I've been sort of working behind the scenes trying to sort out our audio and video things, whether that's on Zoom or in the church building.
Yeah, and we really, really appreciate it. So we've got a few questions that have been coming up amongst our church members and community users as well. And just like with Helen, just to shine a light and bring everybody on the same page. Are you ready?
Sure.
Right, so the first question is, how can the sound level be improved in church? There have been several people who have found it difficult to hear it, and it could be due to traffic noises, maybe.
Yeah, so the first thing is probably the traffic noise, I suspect, is responsible for quite a lot of this, because we've got to have the doors open for COVID reasons. So depending on the day, it can be really quiet on School Road, or it can be very, very noisy, particularly with some motorcycles. So I'm afraid there's not a lot I can do about that aspect. We can try to turn the sound up in the church building, but it's not really clear to me whether the problem is volume or actual audio clarity. And sometimes you can make things louder and it actually makes things worse. Some of you may have found that already, sort of on your TVs. You think, oh, I can't quite hear what they're saying, I'll turn it up. Oh no, that's worse. We're constantly trying to make it clearer. If it is a matter of just the volume, we can probably raise it a little bit, but not too much. Otherwise, we'll end up getting feedback and that horrible howling noise. But we can try a bit. So if you can give feedback to Lola or to myself or one of the stewards around, is it that you can hear the noise, it's fine loudness wise, but it's just still unclear, or whether it's just, no, it's just too quiet for you. Obviously, you can try to sit closer to the speakers, which then means that you're further towards the edge, which may make seeing a bit harder, as I think we'll talk about later on. But we're doing what we can, but there are a few limitations. And I think the major limitation at the moment is having both the front and the back door open, which means that we get more noise through that way.
Right, next one is, can the words of hymns be made clearer on the screen?
Right, this is tricky for various reasons. Partly because what do you mean by clearer? It's going to be different for everyone. It would be quite nice, and maybe at the next church AGM we should have some words on the screen and we can do an optician style, better with the first or the second. But some people like white on black text, some people like yellow on blue. It will be clearer for some people than others.
Yeah.
It's not obvious to me where the problems are. Does it look blurry for you? Is it just not big enough? And there again, we've got a balancing act. We can make all the text bigger, but then we can either only have one or two lines of really big text on the screen at a time, which makes it harder because you're keeping on changing it, or we don't see any of the singers, which makes it harder for the people. I'm very conscious of the people worshipping from church at home rather than church in the church building. It's all one church. For the people worshipping via Zoom, I think it's really helpful to be able to see the singers, and the more of the screen that's taken up with the words, the harder that becomes. So we might be able to make it a little bigger. Please let me know if that's the problem. If it's that it looks a bit blurry, there's probably not very much I can do about that, other than trying to change the colors. We've previously, for the last sort of 5 months, had yellow on black. Last week, so October the 3rd, I tried yellow on dark blue, which is closer to what it used to be. We can make it any color we like. The trouble is we can't make it different colors for different people at the same time. Yeah. And I've had feedback from some people saying, oh, thank you for using yellow because white would look awful. And a few other people saying, oh, I'm not sure about these colors. So please do give us feedback, but be aware that we are unlikely to be able to make it the best possible for every individual all at the same time. And you might want to try, if it's blurry and you're currently sitting at the side, you might want to see if you can sit closer to the center where you're sort of facing straight onto the projector, because that angle might be tricky. I would mention, if it's not just at church that you're finding things tricky, it's worth remembering that we've all got another 18 months older since the start of the pandemic, and so our hearing and eyesight might not be all it was. So if you're finding it not just in church, then definitely get an eyesight test and maybe a hearing test as well.
Right. Is the loop system still working, the hearing loop system?
I hope so, but it's quite hard to tell. We do have a little test device that I will be trying out again. I tried it back in about June and it was working, but I can't tell because I don't use a hearing aid. It's quite hard to tell the quality of it, what works well, what doesn't work well. I've currently got it set up that it should be amplifying everything, I think, even things that aren't amplified within the building necessarily, apart from the organ. I'm kind of assuming that the organ is loud enough that you can hear it anyway, but things like the piano and the JCBs do have microphones pointed at them that we don't amplify within the church building, but are used to broadcast on Zoom. I believe, and we can check this, that those should still be coming over the loop system. Now, if you are a loop system user, and if it's not working at all, please let me know anytime, and I can definitely have a look. I may not be able to do anything, but I can have a look. If it's working a bit, but isn't very good quality, then there are two things. Firstly, I'm not sure the last time we had the loop system maintained, and we probably need to get a professional to come and have a look at that. And that's something that we're talking with the property committee already, because we know that it's been a while. And the other is, if we could arrange some time to be in the church building, maybe after a service, and try a few things out to see what would work for you, then that would be great. I mean, ideally, if we could get 5 or 10 loop users all at the same time and try all the different mics and said, oh, if I turn that up, is that better? Is that worse? That would be really useful.
Is Zoom staying?
Absolutely. Now, it may, over time, it may evolve from Zoom to something else, but I've been boring people silly about this, to be honest, since about May 2020, when we finally went on Zoom. And after a few weeks, it was, okay, well, I know this isn't the same as being in the building, but it still feels like church to me. And I know it doesn't feel like church for everyone, but it felt to me like finally we had stopped letting down the housebound or those who are caring for someone or just someone on holiday. There are all kinds of things that being on Zoom enables. So yes, I've been absolutely determined for the last year and a half that this was going to be a permanent thing if I could possibly make it that way. However, I'm aware it's not for everyone. Not everyone has an internet connection. Not everyone wants to be there at that time or feels comfortable maybe. So we're also exploring other things, including a YouTube channel to put readings and sermons on with the consent of those who are reading and preaching, which is significantly easier in terms of privacy things than doing filming the whole service and putting that on YouTube. We should be fine with the with readings and hymns, and potentially other ways. If you don't have an internet connection, YouTube will do nothing for you. But if you would appreciate an audio version of the sermon and readings, then we may be able to do that for you. So we're definitely looking for feedback, because we want to be a church for all. We've got to be as inclusive as we can be, and no one should feel, I can't go to church in person, therefore I can't be part of church. Everyone is part of church, and we want to make that as good as we can for you.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know about other people, but when we've had weddings and funerals and, we've had international people logging in from other countries. Yep. My family got back, my children and my partner got baptized. And, it was at a time where we were still in a little semi-lockdown or more social distancing. So, my in-laws and godparents were able to Zoom in and be part of the service, so things like that. It's
awful as the pandemic clearly is. There are good things that we can take from this, and we mustn't lose those.
No, definitely not. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's clarified a few things. If this has thrown up more questions than answers, do let us know. But take care, everyone, and God bless.